Today on the show, we're going to be talking about testing and freezing our sperm. We have curated a really special guest. Khaled Kteily is the CEO of Legacy, which is a digital fertility clinic for men.
There's a number of reasons why you might want to speak with a clinician. If you are presenting with azoospermia, i.e. you have no sperm in your sample, there are treatments that you can go through, there are protocols you can follow, but in many cases it makes sense to speak to a doctor to just better understand your results.
Welcome, everybody, to Talk With Turek. This is a show about men's fertility and sexual health. My name is Rob Clyde. I'm a producer here in LA. And who are you?
Dr. Turek.
Oh, of
men's
course.
Health specialist.
My co-host and good friend, Dr. Paul Turek, who gave me my vasectomy. I think we can just always jump right to did the job. You know what I'm saying?
He knows my nuts.
He knows my nuts well. We'll talk about my nuts later. So today on the show, we're going to be talking about testing and freezing our sperm. We have curated a really special guest. Khaled Kteily is the CEO of Legacy, which is a digital fertility clinic for men, which kind of fits the mission of this show. And we're going to talk more about their mission and how Khaled got into this. But they have an at-home sperm analysis kits and at-home freezing kits for sperm. Let's disclose that you're an advisor for Legacy, which is a good thing.
He's a young buck interested in sperm.
Well, so last episode was the penis show. It makes sense that today would be the sperm show.
Keep progressing.
So we'll get to Khaled in a little bit, but before we do, I just thought we'd catch up. It's been a little while since we filmed one.
It's been quite a year.
Yeah, right?
You, Mr. Pasadena, who just missed the fire.
Yeah, we were really lucky. So our studio right here is in South Pasadena, which is next door to Altadena.
I'm actually very honored that we're still able to film.
Because
I was worried about that. It's like, is that studio gone?
We're very lucky. We really were.
What an amazing week that's been.
I know. It has been surreal. It felt like a bomb went off the next morning, and we've been dealing with it, and everything it was almost pandemic-like.
Yeah,
it felt
true.
like kids didn't go to school. Yeah. Felt a little pandemic-like. There were lines at Costco to get water, masks. So I think everybody had a little PTSD.
I have to say,
from
my
that
one
too.
story is when I realized I could see the fires from where I live, but I was 3 miles away. But that was pretty scary. And I flew in from San Francisco to Burbank and saw it looked apocalyptic. I mean, it looked like a bomb went off, fires in the mountains on both sides. And it was like, we're really actually landing right through it. And then when I was with my 16-year-old daughter, Vanessa, and for the weekend, and I sort of said, Vanessa, we're going to be okay. But a lot of people aren't. So let's go help out. So we go to Costco and buy a bunch of stuff. I call up these places and what do you need? Everyone's bringing water. So we brought, a bunch of food, a bunch of stuff, and volunteered. And that changed it for me because I realized LA has been a fractured kind of, bustling, fractured city and it just brought everyone together. And the amount it was hard to volunteer. Everyone's out there. There's a whole different. It's a unifying thing. It's the only good side of it all.
Yeah,
all of it.
But it has been LA strong. We did the same.
Absolutely.
We went and volunteered at the Pasadena Public Library where someone had just impromptu said donation center, and so they're ripping bags open. There's plenty of stuff for sure.
But the give I see from the community is fabulous. And now when you see a fire engine down any street in LA, everyone stops, right? Before they used to stop for a little bit and get right behind it, right?
I'll get to it. Yeah.
But it's so nice to see LA pull it together.
Yeah, very nice. We're going to keep going.
Okay.
We're going to talk about other things other than fires. I got a gift from somebody. It is, and I'm bringing it up today because of your hobby of cars. Okay. So I am not a car guy. I don't know anything about them. I don't know how they work.
Interest.
And it's sad, but my dad didn't teach me sports. Yeah, my dad taught me sports. But what I got was an inflation pump. And yes, coming off of our episode last week, that could mean something totally different, like an inflation of my penis pump. It is not.
It's
not a penis pump.
I see. So this is for your car.
This is for my car.
Oh, okay.
So they have these, and I know. So I'm guessing you have one of these chargeable.
I have
electric.
all kinds of inflation pumps.
Yeah. But do you have one for the car that just you set it and forget it? You put it in the tire okay.
Because vintage cars, you can't find a gas station and try to pull.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is the technology has gone so far from for me yesterday to today. Yesterday, I was a person that went to the gas station and struggled to get it around the car and put it in there and held the tape with my thumb.
Pay the $1.25.
Pay the $1, or you got to go in and buy a pack of gum and they'll give it to you for free, right? And so you're doing that, and then you're waiting for this. Then you let it go, and the lipstick.
Right.
The copper lipstick gauge comes out, right? And you
have
go,
to measure
is
it every
that
time.
33 or is that 43? And I can't see it, and I'm hurrying up, and So somebody got me this rechargeable one that I set the compression rate on the tire. I put it in there,
Moto
and I
Air,
hit go, and I walk away. And it does the whole thing. And then up next to the camera, it's the best gift I've ever gotten. And it just shows you how far the tech can jump. Like we didn't have those.
I have a couple of car friends, and one of them I wanted to give a gift, so I called his wife and I said, "Does he have an electric car pump?" And she said, "Yeah."
That would be that should be like the gift.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? One. Like that would. I'm going to start using it. What am I thinking? You have 3 of them, but that's what you're going to get for Christmas.
But you can keep it in the car too, which is great.
So anything else in your?
No, it's sperm time.
It's sperm time. Let's talk sperm. Let's get to our guest. Khaled, welcome to the show today, everyone. This is Khaled Kteily.
Hey, Khaled.
Where are you joining us from today?
Oh, joining in from New York, Manhattan.
Oh, okay, great. Awesome. So Khaled Kteily is the CEO of Legacy at www.givelegacy.com. It's a digital fertility clinic for men, helping change the outdated view that fertility is a woman's issue. Sounds a lot like what we say on this show.
Yeah, beautiful.
Legacy is a graduate of Harvard's Innovation Labs and Y Combinator, and has raised over $50 million from top-tier investors like Firstmark Capital and Bain Capital Ventures, as well as celebrities like Justin Bieber and DJ Khaled. Let's start with our 2 truths and a lie. So basically what we're doing is we're asking our guests to give us 2 truths and a lie, and we guess which one is not true. Okay. So Khaled is saying that he has lived through an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, and a bombing.
So that's one.
That's one.
Okay.
He said he has lived in 9 cities. Okay. 9 cities. That's a lot. I think I could.
He's only like 26 years old.
Yeah, I know. So that is a lot. And then that he has frozen more sperm than anyone in the country. Which one is the lie?
The third one.
No, he has, I'm guessing, the most frozen sperm than anyone. And I got you on this because the truth is they're all
true.
They're all true. He lived in 9 cities. So how does that journey happen?
Good and bad reasons, but my family has lived all over, and over the years, just between work, travel, studies, I spent some time in Lebanon and Cyprus, spent some time in Canada and the US, of course. I was in Switzerland for a couple of years. I spent a little bit of time in Vietnam. And so it's one of those where I've just kind of pursued where the opportunities have taken me. And so now New York is home for the foreseeable future. And it feels like New York is, in fact, the epicenter of the universe in many ways.
Wow. Yep.
Where was the earthquake?
Well, the earthquake was in Limassol, Cyprus.
Okay.
The volcanic eruption was in Uruguay. I think it was got to be around 2014. My brother, dad, and I were visiting the southern tip of Argentina. We were so close to Antarctica. We were a day away by ship. Huge eruption goes off, shuts down all air travel across the southern continent. We ended up having to take a 36-hour bus ride nonstop from all the way South Argentina to get to Buenos Aires and to eventually be able to get out of the country.
Wow.
Similar. I mean, we were on fire, as you might have been hearing while we were talking earlier, and people planning their routes to get out. It was a real thing. So and then of course a bombing. Was it where was that?
I happened to be in Lebanon in 2006 when war broke out, and had a pretty large explosive go off about 2 buildings away from where I was sleeping.
Whoa!
Woke me up in the middle of the night. Actually threw me off the bed because the building was shaking, and that was the moment my brother and I looked at each other and said, "All right, maybe it's time to get out."
Wow!
That's a lifetime.
We're talking about sperm today.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's do sperm.
So first of all, just tell our audience really quickly what Legacy does.
Yes, I've been running the company for 6-7 years now. We were founded out of Harvard's Innovation Labs. The idea was just we only ever talk about fertility as a women's issue. And as the 3 of us know, that's a point of view that is outdated and it's biologically wrong. Male factor fertility is extraordinarily important in order to have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy child. But the thing is, I had gone through the process myself many years ago of testing and freezing my sperm when I was living in Cambridge. And let me tell you, everything about that process is extraordinarily awkward, right? You walk into the room, they hand you the cup, they're telling you that you have a time limit to produce your sperm sample. There's pornographic materials available, which of course you don't want to touch. Everything about that experience was subpar. And coming out of that experience, I said to myself, well, why aren't more men thinking about their fertility? Well, this is a pretty big damn reason, because nobody wants to go to a clinic, or certainly not that clinic experience, if they don't have to. What Dr. Turek has done is he's created one of the most beautiful, kind of masculine, elegant spaces to do so. But let me tell you, where I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I felt like I was in an alley. I felt like I was in a back room in an alley somewhere being asked to, masturbate into a cup. And so that sent me down the path of, well, what if you could create a product that was mail-in, that was done from home? What if you could create a product that was affordable, that was available nationwide? Well, wouldn't that totally change the way and men's willingness to use this product? And wouldn't this unlock a whole new market of men who would never go to a clinic, but absolutely would do this from the comfort of their own home? That, of course, being accelerated by COVID and just the shift towards at home in general.
The history of semen analyses, kits, this is sort of a kit thing, but it's different because it's collected at home, but it's analyzed in a lab. So it's actually an official semen analysis, done by a licensed laboratory that's authorized. This is a full-on formal semen analysis like you would in any lab, but it's just the way you can collect it from home, which removes a lot of the embarrassment and features of it that are not palatable. But it started about 25 years ago. There was a company called Fertility, and they had a kit, and it started in England, and it caught on there. Then there was these post-vasectomy kits that came out, and I was part of all of them.
Okay.
Because I thought this is a great thing to have, because if men get control, can do it at home, they're going to learn something. And that's what we're doing. We're learning about, okay, it's not normal or it's normal. I mean, it just data, just getting some data from men.
Yeah, that's part of our mission. That's part of the mission of it,
right,
too.
And that's when Khaled came to me, I said, I'm in.
That's
because
awesome.
I saw that, yeah.
So why should men be freezing their sperm?
Well, I mean, I'll weigh in on this one, but there's many reasons. So we have men who are undergoing medical treatment. So if you're starting chemotherapy, that can be very harmful to your fertility. It makes sense that you'd want to freeze your sperm beforehand. We have a fair number of men who are getting vasectomies who say, hey, listen, I am 99% sure I don't want kids, but just worst case scenario, something happens, I like knowing that I have a backup and I could still have a child someday. We work a lot with the LGBTQIA plus community, who inherently have more complex fertility journeys. What we say is, hey, if you have sperm, you should be thinking about freezing it. Let's say you're transitioning. Well, hey, that's going to impair your fertility down the line, but you may still want to be a parent. We work quite a bit with the military. So we freeze the sperm of the Navy SEALs. We do it for the Green Berets. We work with VA centers all across the country. And in those cases, it makes sense, especially in a time of geopolitical risk. You're being deployed. You want to make sure that if anything happens, God forbid, you're wounded in action, or even if you were killed in action, that you or your spouse could still have that family. And then increasingly, our fastest growing market is men who are just saying, hey, I'm worried about what's happening in the world. I'm worried about the rates of cancer. I'm worried about microplastics. I'm worried about phthalates and BPAs. I'm worried about red dye. What was it? Red dye 2 or 3 that was just banned a couple of days ago. Yeah. I'm worried about everything that is going on that seems to be so poorly regulated in this country that I want to make sure that I can freeze my sperm when I am as young as possible, as healthy as possible, as microplastics free as possible, as chemicals free as possible. And I just like knowing that I have the peace of mind of having that sperm sample stored somewhere just in case.
Yeah, and I'd say another population that's increasing, at least I see in the office, is paternal age. So men who aren't in a relationship, are young, and want to freeze because they don't know if they're going to be in a relationship or when, but there's things that are becoming obvious as men age that happens to them, their sperm, their fertility, and also the health of their children.
Yeah, this all, by the way, so I kind of play the role as the everyman, right? Not the scientist, not the CEO, but the person
it's
that's
an IQ thing.
Yeah. We won't get into my SAT scores.
We like these questions.
So
okay?
this makes sense from a world of 23andMe and Ancestry, where quick shipping, get it to a lab. And really, honestly, we've been advocating for, or I have, when couples get together and they decide they are going to try to procreate, it would be nice if they knew if they could.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this should be on their wedding registry.
Thank you.
Yeah, instead of assuming.
Instead of assuming. And then when you're however old you are and you realize there's a problem, now you're in 10 years into a marriage and it's really hard emotionally for a couple. So I see where that is a benefit for men and women. How does the freezing part work? So, and how are they getting it? How is it working these days as far as taking the sperm that's frozen and actually making babies with it? What's the process?
Yeah. Well, I can definitely speak to that. So I'll walk you through the process just so you can kind of visualize how it goes end to end. So someone orders our product online. We ship them out a kit that they receive at home 1 or 2 days later. They produce a sperm sample from home. The hardest part of that is you have to abstain from ejaculation for 2 to 5 days. We say optimal is 3 to 4 days. That for most men is the most difficult part. The experience, of course, the process is really straightforward for the vast majority of men. And we even say, all of our customers are satisfied.
Yeah, I don't know how many men are comfortable making love to a cup, but
Sure.
I like the process, though. The process works for me, and the ending actually works every time too. So
Correct.
I don't know. I'm not
And so-
complaining. I'm not complaining.
So the man would ejaculate into the cup. We put everything back in the legacy kit. We have a sperm preservative that keeps the sperm alive during transport. So we then ship it back. We get it at our lab. We then conduct a full semen analysis. So we'll test for things like volume, count, concentration, motility, morphology. We can even do DNA fragmentation testing, which tests for how much DNA damage there is in your sperm. So all of these things help you understand your overall fertility.
Let me make that point to our audience. So there's two things. You are sperm testing and analyzing, and then you are sperm freezing as well.
Correct. So these are actually two separate services we offer.
Got it.
Now we don't freeze sperm unless we've tested it, because we don't want to be freezing sperm. What if there's no sperm in the sample, for example? But you can choose to test your sperm without freezing.
Got it.
And so let's say you've opted in for the freezing and you say, hey, you know what? I'm planning on getting a vasectomy next year, or I'm worried about my, advanced maternal age, or so on. What we then do is we take your sample, we split it into 2. We then send it off and store it in 2 separate geographic locations. Now, the reason that matters is there have been some high-profile meltdowns at fertility clinics over the years. And in fact, even if you look at what's happening in California right now, you have some fertility clinics that are scrambling to get their frozen samples out of the state to somewhere safer. So what we do is we eliminate that risk, or we almost entirely eliminate that risk by storing the same sample in multiple locations. We call it multi-geo storage. Once you are ready to use that sample, we are currently facilitating sample transfers. So all across the U.S., I think we have Montana, California, Texas happening right now. We have international transfers. We have Switzerland. We have Mozambique. We have Vietnam. We have a few others, Nigeria. So we are constantly, transferring sperm samples all across the world to help people ultimately use their sperm sample when they are ready to do it.
it's interesting. It's always been difficult to transfer gametes like sperm or eggs out of the country. I'm proud of you for getting things done in other countries, because Canada's been okay, but a lot of other countries, you ship it in these shippers and they last 15 days, liquid nitrogen, and then it gets to customs and there's a letter on it that says that, don't open this is what's in it. So I don't believe it. It sits there and thaws because no one knows what to do with it. So getting that streamlined is so important.
What kind of volume are we talking about here? So a single ejaculation and then it's in a cup and that's it. It's not, I don't know. It's not that much. So you're getting...
No, they're straws. They're little straws, but...
Got it. So
why do you ask?
I don't know. I'm just curious of what, when you say we're freezing it, I think of breast milk.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah,
that's what
I
I'm
thought
thinking of. I think of breast milk.
What?
I don't know. It's a biological fluid that you're saving.
Did you
you're
do the
freezing.
SATs?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
no, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm just, so it's just a little tube, and that's
they're stored in liquid nitrogen, negative 196 degrees Celsius, monitored on a daily basis, both kind of through automatic checks as well as manual checks every day. And actually, we believe that sperm can be frozen indefinitely with no loss in quality. And one of our advisors, Dr. Alan Pacey over in the UK, has said that in theory, we could freeze sperm pretty much forever. Or rather, we have no scientific evidence to suggest that we can't freeze sperm for hundreds or thousands of years. And people forget that sperm is if I know this correctly, but sperm is the simplest cell in the human body compared to eggs that I believe are the most complex cells in the human body. And so
Well, I
sperm
don't
is
think
simple.
they're simple, Kyle. That's like saying a Ferrari's a simple car.
Yeah.
They may be fast, but they're not simple.
Yeah.
But they are elemental, and they're
Yeah.
packaged for speed, right? So unlike other
Yeah.
cells, they're
Yeah.
condensed to the point where they're quite rugged.
Yeah,
Cells
absolutely.
eggs are not.
Yeah.
Eggs are like bing.
They're ready to drive down the Autobahn.
The Autobahn.
They go quick. So so when we unthaw them, they come to life again.
So the history of of sperm freezing.
Give us a background on the
couple
history
hundred years
of,
old.
and not only that, if you guys don't mind, it would be smart for our guests to understand what sperm banks do and how they
Sure.
work a little bit too, because you're a disruptor in sperm banks too, and you're so anyway.
I can't
give us a little
remember
history.
who it was in Italy who about 200 years ago who froze the semen in snow and then thawed it, and sperm move, and it kept moving, so it woke up moving.
Okay.
And that was the established sperm banks. I think Cappy Rothman and the California Crowd Bank, 1950s, 60s is when it became kind of commercial.
Okay.
And you freeze sperm in egg yolks. Protein based is one of the biggest ways to do it. The biggest changes are how you do it. Do you do it slowly, or do you do it quickly? Do you vitrify, meaning instantly freeze it? And the problem, sperm has a count and a motility, and the motility means it's alive. What happens when you freeze sperm is it forms icicles from the inside, and it kills the sperm. It's like imploding, sort of.
Okay.
And then when you thaw, the same thing happens, and that's the death part. But when it's frozen, nothing happens, right? So you lose motility and viability when you freeze it. Nothing happens when it's frozen, and then you lose it when you thaw it. So the work is at those ends.
Yeah,
But
the
yes,
timing.
it could, if it's a perfect freezing regimen without an earthquake or a tornado fire, you could probably go. We don't know. And, I think there was one thawed with success at around 26 years.
Yeah, there was one, I think, after 40 or so years, used to have twins.
Yeah. So I mean, a 40 is like as old as we've done it. So
Okay.
that still shows that it's doing well at that point. So it could be indefinite as long as it's safely done. I think my big picture is that Khaled's doing really well here because other kits have failed for years because of lack of interest. But the combination of egg freezing and awareness, it's hit a critical point, a tipping point, essentially, for this success of this, which is great for the field of men's health, I think.
Yeah, you have a tough job in front of you because you have the science that you have to maintain, and nobody's going to know. Like, the men in this country don't have this as an issue in their lives yet. You're just trying to get the message out.
Yeah,
That's half of your battle.
what I'll say to Dr. Turek's point is we forget that egg freezing is a relatively recent phenomenon. I mean, the ASRM, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, it was a little over 10 years ago, right, at which they were still classifying it as experimental.
Correct.
Right, and not something that they were recommending for women. And now it's something that, at least in my social circles, has become extraordinarily common to talk about
Absolutely.
or to do. And we forget that it was not long ago that egg freezing was a very novel new thing. And so that's very much the path that sperm freezing is going down. Certainly we have a lag of maybe 5 years behind. And certainly, there's more awareness and work and education that we need to do. But it's moving quite quickly along.
That whole process is getting clinicians like me information, because they'll learn that their sperm count's low, and then they'll start worrying about it because men love numbers, right? And this is a number, and then they get care where they've never gotten it before.
That's it. So when do they need to go see this guy? When is it important that the kit is informative? And then are you recommending? And tell me how that
Yeah,
process.
frequently. So there's a number of reasons why you might want to speak with a clinician. Some of it, frankly, even if all of your numbers are perfectly normal, you may still want a little bit more context or a little bit more information that you're going to get by talking to someone who's been doing this kind of work for decades and know this space so well. If folks have, one or more parameters that are below the normal ranges, depending on how much below the normal range they are, they may choose to say, hey, this seems like something I want to learn more about. Certainly, if you are presenting with azoospermia, i.e. you have no sperm in your sample, it would make sense for you to speak to a clinician as well about what your options are. And in many cases, there are treatments that you can go through. There are protocols you can follow. But in many cases, it makes sense to speak to a doctor to just better understand your results.
And that opportunity has never existed because this was it's not well publicized. It's accepted. And now it used to be, you go 2 years and the partner is dragging the guy into the doctor and then he learns it, and everyone's angry. And here you're like, it's at the beginning of the thing. You may not be trying. I had 2 patients last week, not trying to conceive, just getting checked out, and they've got a problem, and we're able to fix it. And like that saved them a couple of years of trouble, right? I mean,
awesome.
And by the way, just on that, I mean, the number of fertility clinics that, will skip over or gloss over the male partner in a heterosexual couple and just say, hey, why don't you guys jump to IVF? Why don't you guys use ICSI? Why don't you guys go through this procedure without the necessary care and attention focused on the male partner? And what people forget is that actually male infertility is relatively easy and cheap to diagnose compared to female fertility. And it is relatively easy and cheap to treat. And so in a world where actually you're testing both the male and female partner in a heterosexual couple at the beginning of their journey, you might actually be able to address the male infertility side of things if there is an issue, and then be able to conceive naturally without having to go through assisted reproduction techniques.
I mean, that's my line. You can cure them. We don't treat, we cure.
I love it.
I spent my entire academic career at UCSF as a professor publishing about how classic treatments for male infertility are always more cost effective than assisted reproduction with IVF.
Absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely.
Everything we do.
IVF is expensive and it's invasive, right? But a fertility clinic, of course, is incentivized to push a couple towards these treatments, which have a higher success rate, but are also invasive and very expensive and very financially lucrative for those clinics.
Absolutely. So how much is this preventative step? So if my son if I'm saying, hey, I want you to, if it becomes the commonality like we're saying we want it to be, and it's a step in the process of manhood, or what does the process cost in general to get my sperm analyzed and frozen?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start by saying, so first of all, our base product is $295. So very affordable for the average man. And we're able to do that because we operate at scale, because we operate nationwide, because we're handling more semen samples than anyone in the country. We're able to do this at scale. That said, we are covered by almost every major insurer. So, for example, we have a nationwide contract with United Healthcare. We have contracts with Aetna, Cigna, Emblem, Anthem, you name it, we're covered.
Nice
the
work.
second of which is there's about 1,500 employers that actually offer us as a benefit to their employees through one of their fertility services providers. So those are companies like Progeny or Win Fertility or Maven and so on. And then if you're in the military as well, there's if you're in the VA, you're actually covered by the VA for sperm testing or sperm freezing. With Legacy, and we're actually expecting to be covered for active duty over the next 6 months as well.
Again, I would think it would be a step that
he's trying to make it
if you go
not
into the
step.
Army,
It's
yeah,
just
but I
a
mean,
walk.
it's just a walk, right? Like you go into the Army and they go, cool.
This should be part of basic training.
Yeah, it should be part.
Buzz off up there and then buzz it down there.
That's what.
Funny. I started a nonprofit called Banking on the Future, and it was for teenagers with testis cancer. And the concept is it's the lowest hanging fruit in preventative medicine.
Yeah.
You don't know the risk if you go to war. You don't know the risk with cancer sometimes, and it comes on quickly. And our providers, the cancer care providers are failing to sort of give them a chance to do something. And 50% of the time, it's not even discussed, and it's like ridiculous. But it's the lowest hanging fruit because dealing with it later is a much harder, complex problem because that's mostly what I have.
We were talking with Jennifer earlier, like about the conversation of vasectomies, and guys don't talk about it. We just don't talk about it. I would never, before this podcast, have an active thought to be freezing my sperm for the.
By the way, and I'll tell you a fun fact around vasectomies. After Roe v. Wade was overturned a couple of years ago, we actually saw more men who are looking at preventative vasectomies, kind of proactive vasectomies, who are saying, look, I don't want my partner to have to use birth control, right? Because of all the hormonal implications. We don't want to run the risk of having an unplanned pregnancy in a state which, where maybe now we don't have access to an abortion. And so I, as the male partner, I'm going to freeze my sperm. I'm going to get a vasectomy. And then when the time comes that we're ready for kids, I'll either get a vasectomy reversal or use my frozen sperm. And in doing so, they eliminate the female partner having to go through hormonal birth control, which really is a significant burden we put on women. And they're also reducing the risk of an unplanned pregnancy.
Here's a question out of left field. So when you have the largest collection of frozen sperm in the world,
maybe the world, you don't know, right?
With the Chinese, we never know, but we certainly have have one of the largest.
No, that's true. So is there a next step to where you are a sperm bank and you do people sign and say, I can check the box and I'm willing to give this away at some point?
It's a very interesting question, and you are the third person to ask me this week, including a reporter from the Financial Times who's working on a piece about exactly this topic right now. And I will say there's two parts to my answer for that. The first of which is, historically, we have said absolutely not. And the reason for that is, as we were getting established as a business, we did not want to introduce the concept of commerce into you freezing your sperm, right? And in the early days, we got a lot of questions around, are you going to sell my sperm? Are you going to take my genetic data, right? Relatively new company. We weren't as established. We weren't working with the US military the way that we are today. We weren't working with major insurers the way we are today, and so on. As we have established ourselves as the leader in the space, as we have had, kind of tens of thousands of patients who have come through the process, there's a higher level of trust. And we've actually been discussing this topic with one of our advisors, which is, well, what if we started to ask men who are producing their sperm sample if they would be willing to consider the topic?
Yeah.
And to that, I would say, I think there is a real market there, because we have seen there's a massive shortage of active sperm donors in the country. By one person's metrics, who shared that there's 1,500 active sperm donors for a population of 400 million people.
Wow.
So there's a need for it, right? I think there's a market for it. What I will say is it is a non-trivial topic.
Yeah, right.
Because when you are actually giving someone your sperm, I mean, I have been asked by friends so many times over the years, and it's a very flattering question to be asked, but it is also a very real thing to be bringing a child into this world that is 50% you. And so with that, you would want to offer genetic counseling. You would want to offer psychological counseling. You would want to make sure they have access to resources to help them understand, what it actually means. And in a world, especially you mentioned 23andMe, in a world where we no longer have genetic anonymity, you have to assume that 18 years from today, or 18 years and 9 months, or whatever it is, right?
You are
going
knock on the door.
A call. Yeah, and you have to decide from now, what role do you want to play, if any? Because being a sperm donor is not just ejaculating into a cup and handing it off to someone. It is, you are helping create life in this world. And so that's where we have actually looked at it quite seriously. It's something we are working on and researching, but it's not something that we want to do in half measure. If we are launching a product like this, there's a level of care that has to go into offering a product like this. But I will say there's a very clear demand for it. There's a very clear market for it.
Yeah, he's respecting the sacredness of it all.
Well, then that brings me right to talk about, let's get into global birth rates dropping. So that is a topic that I know that you have brought up a few times, and let's talk about it. What are because we're hearing the spermageddon, the
spermpocalypse.
The spermpocalypse. The need is there for people like you just mentioned, but what are the numbers? Like, tell me a little bit more about the stats.
Khaled, why don't you start that one?
I'll kick this off. I will start by saying it is difficult to disentangle the plummeting birth rates globally from many factors that go into it. And those include The median age in the United States has gone up. Age at marriage has gone up, right? Point at which couples are trying to have children has gone up. The number of desired children has gone down. That, by the way, is for a host of socioeconomic reasons. It is for, it's expensive to have a child, right? I live in New York. My God, I need my company to go public for me to be able to afford, to have 4, 5, or 6 children, right? And so there's a multitude of factors that go into it. What I will say is one of those factors is that since we are older when we are trying to have children, take a heterosexual couple, male partner and a female partner, right? The male partner is now older than a few decades ago. The female partner is now older than a few decades ago, which means both of them are less fertile, which means it is going to be more difficult to have a child. You are more likely to go through infertility. You are more likely to need some sort of assisted reproduction. And so all of these are going together. And what that's doing, and I read this recently from Chrissy Farr, who's a former journalist at CNBC, and she said that one of the theories she's come across is that part of it is simply social norms, is that when you are in a society where people around you are having plenty of kids, it normalizes that idea for you as well. Whereas if you are, let's say, living in New York, you're in your 30s, and most of your friends are unmarried or choosing to have 1 child or 2 children, then that also normalizes for you that you should be having less children as well. So all of these are kind of tied into one another. But certainly the fact that sperm counts have been going down year over year is not helping. Certainly the fact that we're learning more and more about the risks of advanced paternal age, that's not helping. Certainly the research coming out around microplastics suggesting that it may have a negative impact on our ability to operate as human beings, including have healthy children, that's not helping either. And so all of those play into this very big, complicated web of reasons why birth rates around the world have gone straight down over the past few decades.
That was very academic. That was a nice answer.
This is the Harvard Kennedy School
Here it
degrees
comes
coming
back
out.
at you. Here it comes.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, there's several issues you have to dissect out. One is birth rates, which are very measurable, right, in countries and all that. And most of what Khaled talked about was affecting birth rates.
Yeah.
And they're definitely down on the down. There are countries, you can have a long talk about this, countries in Asia that will pay for you to have a kid now, and they'll pay for your IVF, Japan, Korea, things like that, because their birth rates 2.1 is sustaining there at 0.8, 0.9, 1.2. So, and then there's the sperm count issue, which is separate from birth rates, and then there's the fecundity issue.
What does that mean?
So fertility is your ability to conceive. Fecundity is the potential to conceive. So the big question is, does all of this reflect a decrease in our fecundity or our potential as a species to conceive? So I really worry about that, not sperm counts.
Okay.
And we met at the NIH, a bunch of us, probably 30 of us, about 4 years ago, published a paper, is human fecundity changing? That was the question.
Yeah.
And the answer is, we don't know. Because it's so complex to measure. There aren't good databases to pick it up. So we don't know if our potential to conceive is different. So when people talk about low sperm counts, I mean, you'll see me talking about, we went from, people say it's falling 50%, 60% in 50 years based on the epidemiologic studies. I would say, well, it went from 100 million to 60 million. Both of those are normal. So what's the difference there? And if you look at fertile men, they fell too, but they're fertile. So they went from normal to normal and they fell. So there's so many things you can pick on. But it's a concern, right? And I think we may be falling and I'm worried, but I don't think our fertility is impaired because of it.
Okay.
That's what we can say because we don't know much about fecundity. And that's different from birth rates, which have a bunch of socioeconomic factors that drive it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Dr. Turek is right on the money. My concern is always about the trend line, right? So we're not at the point today where sperm count. So, to Dr. Turek's point, if you're dropping from 100 to 60, right, you're still in the fertile range. That's fine. I think what's concerning is how steep is that trend line? How long does it take for us to get to the point where actually the average man is now subfertile or, barely producing any sperm at all? And it's that's something that is, decades away potentially, right? Getting to the point where the average male is subfertile. It's not hundreds of years away.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say too, look, we talked about there's the science and then there's the story. And the story we are saying is important today so that we are taking action in ourselves and our children to preserve our fertility and our fecundity. Thank you. And so that takes story, and that takes looking into the future and realizing that, there's an issue that we see in the future that could be alarming. There's issues clearly in the past that we are correcting. And so I'm hearing from both sides, we should be advocating for male sperm testing.
Absolutely.
At an early age, to just know the data, to know the facts of your own fertility and your own sperm. Freezing it takes care of any of those problems in the future, whether you're a veteran, you're an active duty person, a fireman that's here in LA, and Khaled seems to be giving them a path that's even easier. So anyway, I see where it's hard to melt the science and the story, because we do have a mission here together. We have the same mission as you do, which is what I just said.
That's why you're on, Khaled.
That's why, right? And because that sperm, and it's not just for and what Dr. Turek has taught me is it's not just for the health of a man's fertility, it's for the health of a man in general, because the sperm
is the
biomarker for health.
Biomarker of health.
And we had this conversation.
I've heard, Dr. Neil Shah, Chief Medical Officer over at Maven, has said, why aren't men getting an annual semen analysis, and thinking about that as a canary in the coal mine? And Dr. Turek, I know he interviewed you recently in actually a fantastic piece, well worth reading. But it really was this idea of, well, hey, if sperm is a biomarker of health, if sperm is something that is easy for you to test and that you can do from home, if doing so is relatively inexpensive, well, why don't you think about it as a check engine light? And as someone who, not only have I frozen my sperm more than anyone in the country, I'm pretty darn sure I have tested my sperm more than anyone in the country. I actually track my
on people
health.
Or just how did you test your sperm?
Mail-in service called Legacy, available at givelegacy.com. But I actually track my health. And I see the correlation between when I'm sick, when I'm stressed, when I'm sleeping poorly, when I'm over caffeinated, when I've been drinking, whatever it is, and how that impacts my sperm quality over time. And so I think it's a fascinating thought, which is, well, why aren't men considering getting regular semen analyses as just a general check engine light?
We
Great
need to do
question.
that. We need to sponsor that.
Way. I don't know. Khaled working with insurance companies is great.
Well, we got Neil
Shaw. You've got all the barriers.
Yeah.
He's trying to hit the barriers that are keeping men from doing it. And one of the ones is knowledge and awareness, which is, he's been a banner boy for that, which is great.
All right. Well, we have a sign up. We're starting to collect these people. So we had Dr. Shaw on our podcast and talked about a lot of this stuff.
And he talked about, is the semen analysis the new pap smear?
Yeah.
I thought that was very compelling.
Right.
I have always said, and by the way, I purchased this URL maybe 5 years ago, but I've always said, women have an OBGYN that is an annual touch point for their fertility and their sexual health. Why is there no OBGY men? And I purchased the URL OBGY men about 5 years ago.
So did anyone do GUY gynecologist?
Yeah. See, there you go. You guys are brilliant. We're gonna have to start that and get people to sign up. I mean,
Makes
really,
sense to you, huh?
Our hope is, you know what?
That's why I was involved for 25 years with these kits, because I was thinking, it's got to fly. But it was definitely a cultural issue, and there wasn't the momentum. But he's got the momentum now, and it's like a really nice kind of overhead wave, perfectly formed, and he's surfing it.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today, for having the conversation.
Great to see you.
I'm excited to meet you in person sometime. We're gonna have to, when you come to LA, or if I come to New York, I would.
And if you hadn't mentioned you got a vasectomy, I would have told you that you should be freezing your sperm.
Well, it is done. That chapter in my life is done. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Cool. Yes, thank you.
Rob, Paul, great to see you both.
Everyone else, please follow, and subscribe us on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. If you have questions for our guests today or for Dr. Turek, DM us. We will answer them right here.
Absolutely.
And
Love it.
Start thinking about your two truths and a lie.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Khaled.
Thanks for joining the Talk with Turek podcast. Today's show was executive produced by Rob Clyde and Jennifer Harris. DP engineered and edited by Drew Unser. Thanks to Avery Clyde, Shen Heckel, Max Flora, and Jonathan Raju. Talk with Turek is produced and recorded in Los Angeles, California, in association with Hey Babe Media. Subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and watch us on YouTube. For more information or to book an appointment, whether in person or virtual, visit Dr. Turek online at theturekclinic.com or call 1-888-TUREK-MD, TUREKMD. Don't miss our next episode as we delve deeper into men's fertility and sexual health on Talk with Turek. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Talk with Turek for updates and more content.